Good morning. So we are going to take you through a statement we have developed, which is an outcome of the National Dialogue Conference on Electoral Justice in Kenya, which has been running from yesterday with a theme of demanding integrity, accountability, and transparency in electoral processes in the country. And we begin guided by the following constitutional provisions on elections provided in Article 1, 3, 10, 81, and all other enabling principles. The Elections Observation Group, ELOG, the Kenya Human Rights Commission, and other 15 civil society partners convened the National Dialogue Conference in Nairobi on electoral justice in Kenya from yesterday to demand integrity, accountability, transparency in Kenya's electoral processes. The partners, as you see there, are the Defenders Coalition, the Crown Trust, the Editors Guild, Power 254, Uraia, Pambasuko, ICG Kenya, Inuka Nisisi, Katiba Institute, Inform Action, Mzalendo, Stand Up for Multi-Party Democracy, Transparency International, CRECO, among others. Apart from those stakeholders, the conference brought together 374 participants, both physically here and others who are joining online. Inspired and guided by the understanding that for electoral justice to prevail in Kenya, we must look at electoral realities, features of Kenya's electoral system, and electoral oversight issues as the bedrock for peaceful, free, fair, and credible and impunity-free general elections. In this regard, our enduring ideals for free, open societies and democracies, and our commitment to adhere and comply with the Constitution of Kenya, we demand as follows.
We insist that elections must be held on 9th August 2022, and to this end, we demand that IEBC must make the necessary preparations to enable the management and administration of the elections and desist from issuing conflicting signals and excuses on its preparedness. 2, we demand that IEBC, Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, the Judiciary, and the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal, and other electoral management bodies be adequately resourced to effectively deliver on their mandate. In addition, we call upon IEBC to facilitate an inclusive, timely voter education, voter registration, and voter verification exercise. The ongoing recruitment of IEBC commissioners must also be concluded urgently through a process that inspires public confidence. 3, we demand that the Civil Registration Bureau moves with speed to facilitate the issuance and collection of IDs to all eligible citizens to facilitate voter registration.
We demand that the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, IEBC, the Office of the Data Commissioner, take urgent measures to uphold data privacy of citizens participating in the electoral process. Number 5 is that we demand that Parliament swiftly enacts the pending electoral-related legislations necessary for credible, peaceful, free, and inclusive elections. And 6, we call upon the judiciary to uphold the constitutional dispensation in their election-related jurisprudence.
We also demand that the President abides by the rule of law to ensure an enabling environment for the judiciary, constitutional commissions, and independent officers by ensuring they appoint relevant commissioners and adequate resourcing. We urge citizens to be vigilant and actively engage in every stage of the electoral process. We demand that the Inspector General of Police, the IEBC, and all other relevant agencies to establish and make public an election security plan for purposes of electoral accountability. We thank you for your time. God bless Kenya.
So from here, we are going to take a few questions, and George Kegoro and Mheshimiwa Martha Karua are going to handle them for us and also do the off-the-cuff remarks. We'll take questions.
If there are any.
Are there any questions? Yeah, there's a question. Yes?
My name is Roland from Media Max. Yesterday, the chair of IBC during a parliamentary session said that they're not ready for the 2022 elections. Are you concerned?
Any other questions?
Any other questions? So we do them in a row? Hata ya Kiswahili itachukuliwa.
Yes, my name is Paul Kirobi from TV47. IEBC asked Parliament to enact the funding amendment bill ahead of the 2022 general election. So, what is your take on that?
Yes.
My name is Douglas from Milele FM. I'm concerned about also the statement made by IEBC that they may not be able to to identify the new constituencies because the case in court, BBI, is affecting a lot of preparations as far as they are concerned. Now, what happens?
What are you taking?
I think the statement has already said that IEBC should stop issuing contradictory statements. They cannot, on the one hand, tell Kenyans, that is before the court stopped BBI, that they were ready for a referendum, and then say they are not ready for a general election, which is very much just like a referendum. I do think that the IEBC need to take their role seriously and to act in accordance with the Constitution and get ready for the election calendar they have already set out. That's the 9th of August, 2022. We can understand if they are saying they do not have adequate resources, because then it is our duty to push the executive and parliament to ensure that they are adequately resourced. But in terms of preparation, they should be telling us these are the things that must be done. And we would urge them to listen carefully to what Kenyans are saying through the statement that has been issued, that they must have a participatory planning and management of elections. We have 13 months, it's enough time to be ready. You asked about constituencies. Constituencies, the delimitation of constituencies for the next general election may not be possible because of time. But that is no reason not to hold elections on time. It can actually go on, but those constituencies will not be applicable for the 2022 election. They will be applicable for the future elections, 2027 if you like. So all those processes that are late can go on, but no new constituencies can be possible before the next general election. So let's stop mixing issues, and the IEBC should come out with clarity so that Kenyans can know that they indeed are taking their work seriously as we march to the 9th August date, which we must meet.
Okay. I think one of the things that needs to be emphasized and that needs to be clear from the deliberations we've had yesterday and today is the basic problem of this country is there isn't an underlying political consensus on how to manage our immediate future. Our immediate future is the election that under the Constitution needs to take place on the 9th of August. And that date is very close given the preparations that needs to happen before then. So the fact that at a political level we are pulling in different directions, on the one hand there is now contemplation by politicians, or some politicians, not all of them, that because there is a commitment to holding a referendum before the election, and there isn't now enough time for that referendum to be held and the election to also take place in time, that has brought into play on the part of those politicians a view that to accommodate the referendum, then the election date has got to be vacated. So there isn't a leadership that is deliberate and clear leading the country towards preparations for that election, in the hope that nothing will be done in time and they will be forced into then accommodating them. What happened in DRC before they held their last election is that an election date came and went without the government doing anything about it. It created a political crisis, which then the government then used to negotiate. Now we haven't held elections, we can't hold them, we don't know which way to go forward. Can you come and tell us which way to go forward? We fear that that is the default situation in the country, that the political leadership will sit back, do nothing about what they need to, about preparations, and then present a crisis that then gives them leverage to negotiate and say, now that we have this crisis, what do you want us to do about it? So that is the context. The other point to then make about that is this group here, made up of political leaders, civil society leaders, citizens, we are saying that because the Constitution enables it enables citizens, the people who are the actual owners of this country, to delegate their power to elected and other institutions like Parliament, like the executive, but it also allows citizens to exercise that power directly themselves if the leadership is not going to exercise the power and authority that has been delegated to them in a way that protects the public interest. This group is also saying that citizens have every right and have the original power to act to protect their own interests. So the idea that we can wait for government to do things for us when it is manifestly conflicted because individuals within government have got interests that are against the public interest, that is, so we are saying that as citizens, as leaders, we will do things for ourselves to preserve the public interest, because it is manifestly clear that those who have been charged with the responsibility of protecting the public interest have allowed their personal interests to conflict with the public interest and created a situation of conflict that makes them unreliable. Thank you very much.
Just briefly, please. I believe since you've been here since yesterday and discussing about all these issues emerging, and being aware that it's almost that we don't have an opposition that will come out and speak, what you are only saying is some people coming out clearly and saying, without BBI, we are not going to have an election next year. And you've talked about political consensus or political goodwill. Then are those statements not dangerous to this country when some people come and say no BBI, no election next year?
The Kenya will have an election next year. Why do I say that? Because the Constitution says so. It's not me saying it. The Constitution says that there will be an election next year. If there will not be an election next year, then that is a breach of the Constitution. And there will be personal responsibility for anybody who creates a situation where the country does not hold elections. It is just simply that.
Yeah, maybe in response to that, and I'm hoping it's the last because it's a repeat, what I'm saying is this: as the media, you have a responsibility. You have correctly said that there is lack of leadership. And there are people advocating why there should be no elections. The media as a platform for information and education should not tire to repeat to Kenyans that the Constitution dictates that the election be on the 9th of August 2022. So if X is calling for their postponement, the media should be bold. Just say this is an unconstitutional demand. You are informing Kenyans. You are not the ones saying it is the Constitution. So may we call upon the media as partners to take up the role of informing Kenyans, especially with regard to what the Constitution dictates.
Another question?
Yes.
Yes, from yesterday's deliberations, it was very clear that the 2013 and the 2017 voters register had integrity issues. I don't know, because you've not even spoken about IEBC's preparedness in terms of the voter registration, the voters register, and how is this likely to affect the outcome of the 2022 general election?
The register of voters has been a key problem ever since this new way of running elections that is based on an ostensibly verifiable register of voters began. You remember that in the 2013 election, there were huge problems around the register of voters. The register was unreliable, and the totals that IBC issued for purposes of that election kept varying. When they issued the first results, the total number of registered voters was different from the total number of registered voters as at the time that the final provisional registration happened, and after the public verification, a different number came up. When the results started coming out, a different number came out. When finally the results were out and had been cleaned up, a fourth different number came out. So the voter register has been a moving target, and that is something the IBC has never gotten right. The second thing is, while the IBC says that it has digitalized its capacities to register voters, they maintain that thing called the black book. What they did after the former ECK was lambasted for maintaining a black book by the Kriegler process, they just changed the cover. It used to be black, so they changed the cover, and called it a green book. That is the only thing that ever changed. But they still have a book, a physical book, that then, of course, becomes unrelatable with the claims that they make, that they've got a live voter register that is verifiable. The third problem with the registration of voters is access to ID cards. We know how skewed around the country access to ID cards has been. There are places, counties in this country where the levels of access to ID cards is extremely low, and other places where the access to ID cards is relatively easier. So that has created built-in problems with the registration of voters, because if you've got populations, the population sizes should have a relationship with the number of registered voters from different parts of the country. And how the IBC has addressed that question in the past was by saying that, or the political establishment in particular, and also with the backing of IBC, it was by saying something like, nyinyi amku andikisha watu wenu. So you should keep quiet, because if you didn't do your registration work, you shouldn't complain now that you've got relatively lower voter registered people from your part of the country. The answer to that argument is the responsibility to register voters is only on the IEBC. if politicians, through their own type of political mobilization, also come in and help and support the registration process, that is fine. But the primary responsibility to register voters is on the IBC, and that responsibility extends across all parts of the country, irrespective of the challenges and there are varying challenges about access to services and including registers and registration. There are varying challenges across the country, and we acknowledge that. But if we are going to build this country on the basis of equality, if we're going to build this country on the basis of the equality of the vote, then we're going to have equality in the approaches that we make to accessing registration services, which include accessing ID cards and accessing and translating access to ID cards into access to voter to voting cards.
I think you've got all you need. Asanteni sana for coming. The statement that was read is going to be printed for you to get copies for your use during your editing process. So as you're unpacking, we'll get that statement for you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.